The Children of the Ghost. Sarah Chen had learned to build electromagnetic pulse devices when she was 11 years old. Her father had presented it as a fun science project, something to help with her school's engineering fair. She'd won first place and never questioned why her dad knew so much about disrupting electronic systems. Tommy had mastered 17 different martial arts by age 12, though he thought they were just after-school activities to help him make friends and stay in shape. The fact that several of them were designed specifically for fighting in zero-gravity environments had never seemed unusual to him. Emma could pick locks, crack security codes, and slip through air ducts with the grace of a trained infiltrator. But in her mind, these were just games that Daddy played with her, puzzles and challenges that made her laugh and earned his proud smiles. And Jake, the youngest, could speak 14 alien languages fluently. He thought everyone's father taught them how to say, "Help me," and "Please don't hurt my family" in Vorthak, Zephyrian, and Drakmari. Marcus Chen had spent 6 years teaching his children skills they would hopefully never need, disguised as play and learning games. He'd prayed they would live normal, peaceful lives and never discover what their bedtime stories had actually been preparing them for. Now, as Sarah's homemade EMP device activated, he felt both pride and heartbreak. His children were magnificent, and he'd failed to keep them safe from his world. The pulse tore through the Eternal Dominion systems like a digital hurricane. Lights flickered and died throughout the massive ship. Gravity generators stuttered, making everyone float briefly before slamming back to the deck. Most critically, the containment fields holding the observation deck sealed shut down completely. Sarah pocketed her device and turned to her siblings. "Remember the drills Daddy used to run with us? The ones he called emergency evacuation games?" Tommy's eyes went wide with understanding. "You mean those weren't just games?" "I don't think anything Daddy taught us was just a game," Sarah replied. She looked at Emma and Jake, who were staring at her with matching expressions of confusion and dawning realization. "Listen to me. We're going to get out of here, but we need to work together exactly like Daddy showed us." "But we're on an alien spaceship," Emma protested. "Daddy's games were always in our house or the backyard?" "Same principles," Sarah said with a confidence that surprised herself. "Jake, you remember the layout schematics the king showed us when he was trying to impress us?" Jake nodded. His perfect memory was another gift their father had cultivated, though Marcus had disguised it as help with homework and bedtime story recall. "Good. Tommy, you still remember the zero-gravity movement techniques from space camp?" Tommy tested his balance as the artificial gravity fluctuated again. "Yeah, but I thought that was just for fun." "Everything Daddy taught us was for this," Sarah realized. "He's been preparing us our whole lives." She moved to the observation deck's main access panel, which was now dead thanks to her EMP pulse. But their father had also taught them old-fashioned lockpicking, presented as a historical curiosity and mechanical puzzle-solving exercise. Emma joined her at the door, producing a set of improvised tools from her hair clips and button fasteners. "Like the treasure hunt games?" "Exactly like the treasure hunt games." While his daughters worked on the door, Tommy helped Jake to a communication terminal that was still partially functional. The youngest Chen child's fingers moved across alien controls with surprising familiarity. Their father's language games had included not just vocabulary, but also basic technical interfaces for dozens of species. "I can reach the ship's internal communication system," Jake whispered. "Should I try to contact Daddy?" "Not yet," Sarah decided. "First we get to somewhere safer. Then we call for help." The door opened with a soft hiss. Outside, emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through the corridors of the massive ship. Drakmari crew members rushed past without noticing 4 small humans emerging from what should have been a secure area. Everyone was focused on the battle raging outside and the catastrophic systems failures cascading through their vessel. Sarah led her siblings through corridors that should have been unfamiliar but somehow felt navigable. Every family camping trip, every adventure hike through complex cave systems, every game of hide-and-seek in elaborate environments, all of it had been training for exactly this situation. "Daddy taught us how to move through enemy territory without being seen," she whispered to herself. "He called it ninja games." They reached an auxiliary communications center just as the ship's main power began to fluctuate. Jake slipped into the operator's chair and began working with alien controls as if he'd been doing it his entire life. "I can patch into their command frequencies," he reported. "And I think, yes, I can reach Daddy's ship too." "Do it." Light years away, Marcus Chen sat in the pilot seat of the Ghost's Vengeance, watching long-range sensors as his children's liberation unfolded. The Celestial Guardians had maintained their position around the Drakmari fleet, waiting for his signal to resume their attack. His communication system crackled to life. "Daddy?" Sarah's voice came through clearly. "We're okay. We got out of the room they put us in." Marcus felt a surge of emotion so powerful it nearly overwhelmed him. Pride, relief, love, and an odd sense of vindication all mixed together. "Sarah, where are you now?" "Somewhere safer. Jake's working on figuring out the ship's layout from their computer system. Tommy and Emma are watching for guards, just like you taught us." "Good girl. All of you did perfectly. Now listen carefully. I need you to find the ship's main computer core. Can Jake access their navigation system?" A brief pause, then Jake's young voice. "Hi, Daddy. I'm in their network now. Their language is tricky, but I remember the patterns from our language games. I can see the ship's layout." Marcus smiled despite the circumstances. Jake had always been the quickest at languages, absorbing alien grammar structures like a linguistic sponge. Marcus had encouraged it as useful for his future career, never mentioning that it had once saved his own life a dozen times over. "Perfect, buddy. I need you to download everything you can about their defensive systems and ship operations. Save it all to one of the memory crystals I taught you about." "The ones from our treasure hunt games? I thought those were just toys." "Everything I gave you was real, Jake. All of it. The crystals, the tools, the techniques. I hoped you'd never need them, but I made sure you'd be ready if you did." Tommy's voice came through the channel. "Dad, there are guards coming this way. Should we hide or fight?" Marcus felt his heart clench. His 12-year-old son was asking if he should engage alien soldiers in combat. "Hide first, always. Use the techniques from our stealth games. Fight only if you have no other choice." "Got it." "Emma, remember the shadow walking exercises?" "Yep, come on, Tommy." Sarah's voice returned. "Daddy, we're moving to a new location. Jake downloaded their files. What do you need us to do next?" Marcus checked his tactical display. The Celestial Guardians were holding position, but King Zephron still had the firepower to do terrible damage if he decided to go down fighting. And there were still thousands of Drakmari crew members aboard that ship, most of them probably innocent soldiers following orders. "I need you to get to their main engineering section," Marcus said. "I'm going to talk you through shutting down their weapon systems without hurting anyone. Can you do that? Like the engineering puzzles you used to give us?" "Exactly like those puzzles. They were all based on real ship systems." As his children moved through the alien vessel with skills that shouldn't exist in civilians, Marcus reflected on the last 6 years. Every game, every lesson, every fun activity had been designed to prepare them for a world he'd hoped they'd never see, teaching them to be strong, clever, brave, and capable, because he'd known that being his children would always make them potential targets. He'd tried to give them normal childhoods while secretly training them to be the most dangerous kids in the galaxy. And now, they were proving just how well he'd succeeded. "Daddy," Emma's voice came through the communicator. "We're at the engineering place. It's really big and complicated." "I know, sweetheart. But remember the machine puzzles I used to build for you? The ones where you had to figure out which parts controlled which functions? Oh, it's like a giant version of those. Exactly. Now I need you to look for a control panel with crystals that pulse red and blue. Tommy, you'll need to be her hands. She can spot the right controls, but they'll be too high for her to reach. Working together, his children began systematically disabling the Eternal Dominion's weapon systems. Not destroying them, Marcus had been careful to teach them the difference between necessary force and unnecessary destruction, but safely powering them down in ways that would take hours to reverse. King Zephron's voice suddenly cut into the channel. Enough! I don't know how your spawn escaped their containment, but I still control this ship. I can still activate self-destruct and take us all with me. Marcus's response was calm and deadly. Zephron, do you know what my children have been doing for the past 15 minutes? It doesn't matter. They're just children. They've been downloading your complete fleet disposition, troop movements, supply lines, and strategic plans for the next 5 years. Jake has also been sending detailed scans of your ship's interior to my allies, including the location of every weapon, every crew member, and every critical system. Marcus paused, letting that sink in. Sarah has disabled your primary weapons without harming a single member of your crew. Tommy has been mapping escape routes for your own people in case you're foolish enough to try something destructive. And Emma has been planting surveillance devices throughout your ship using techniques I taught her when she was 6 years old. Zephron's silence spoke volumes. You see, Marcus continued, you didn't just kidnap my children. You kidnapped the children of the most dangerous human alive. Did you really think I'd raise them to be helpless? Sarah's voice came back on the channel. Daddy, we've reached the bridge level. We can see King Zephron through the windows. He looks really upset. Stay back and stay safe, Marcus warned. Your job is done. You've been perfect. Daddy? Jake's small voice carried a note of uncertainty. Are you really a killer like the king said? Marcus closed his eyes. This was the conversation he'd dreaded having, but his children deserved the truth. I was a soldier, Jake. Before you were born, before I met your mother, I fought in wars to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Sometimes that meant doing things I'm not proud of. But everything I did was to keep innocent people safe. Like us? Emma asked. Like all of you. Like every child who deserves to grow up without being afraid. Tommy's voice was thoughtful. So all the things you taught us, you learned them fighting bad guys? Yes, and I taught them to you because I love you more than anything in the universe, and I wanted you to be able to protect yourselves and each other. Sarah spoke up. We're proud of you, Daddy, and we're proud to be your kids. Marcus felt tears he hadn't shed in years blur his vision. I'm proud of you too, all of you. You're braver and smarter and more amazing than I ever dreamed you could be. King Zephron's voice interrupted the moment. This is very touching, but you're still my prisoners. I can still... No, Sarah said firmly. You can't. The Eternal Dominion's bridge doors opened, and 4 human children walked in with the confidence of seasoned operatives. King Zephron found himself staring at youngsters who moved like trained soldiers, who had systematically dismantled his ship's defenses, and who showed absolutely no fear of him or his remaining crew. Emma smiled brightly at the massive alien king. Hi, we came to tell you that you should probably surrender now. Daddy's friends are getting impatient. Zephron looked at his tactical display. His weapons were offline. His communications were compromised. His fleet was destroyed. And 4 human children had infiltrated his flagship and neutralized his advantages using techniques that shouldn't exist outside military special forces. Who are you people? He whispered. Tommy grinned. We're the Chen family. Our daddy taught us that family always protects family. Jake stepped forward and spoke in perfect, fluent Drakmari. King Zephron, Our father offers you terms of surrender that will spare your crew and preserve your honor. We recommend you accept." Sarah nodded seriously. "Because if you don't, Daddy's going to remind the galaxy why humans are so scary. And trust me, you really don't want that." Outside the flagship, 40 Celestial Guardian vessels waited for orders. Marcus Chen sat in his small ship, watching his children handle a galactic crisis with skills he'd hoped they'd never need to use. They were magnificent. They were terrifying. They were his kids. And King Zephron was about to learn why the galaxy had spent 15 years being grateful that the ghost of Kepler Station had retired. "Zephron," Marcus said over the communication channel, "you have 60 seconds to surrender. My children have given you every advantage I can offer. After that, we do this the hard way." The Drakmari king looked at the 4 young humans standing confidently on his bridge, then at his useless weapons displays, then at the overwhelming firepower surrounding his crippled fleet. "I surrender," he said quietly. Sarah Chen smiled and spoke into her communicator. "Daddy, mission accomplished. Can we go home now? You promised pancakes for breakfast tomorrow?" Marcus Chen laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief that echoed across the cosmos. "On our way, sweetheart. On our way." The Chen family was going home. Marcus Chen stood in his kitchen, watching his 4 children argue over breakfast cereal. At 42, he looked like any other suburban father. Slightly tired eyes, coffee-stained shirt, and the patient smile of someone who'd refereed countless sibling disputes. What his neighbors didn't know was that those same hands buttering toast had once strangled a Vorthak assassin with nothing but a piece of communication wire. "Dad, Tommy's hogging all the chocolate cereal again," complained Sarah, his 14-year-old daughter. Her auburn hair caught the morning sunlight streaming through their modest kitchen window. "Am not," protested Tommy, age 12, clutching the cereal box protectively. "I poured it first." 8-year-old Emma giggled from her seat, swinging her legs as she watched her older siblings bicker. Meanwhile, 6-year-old Jake methodically arranged his cereal by color, completely AD, the king's prize. King Zephron Vakthul stood on the bridge of his flagship studying the tactical display with satisfaction. The Eternal Dominion was the pride of the Drakmari fleet. 2 kilometers of advanced weaponry and shield technology, crewed by the finest warriors in his empire. Nothing could threaten it out here in the empty void between stars. The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency around him. Officers moved between control stations with practiced precision, their scaled blue-green skin gleaming under the soft lighting. The Drakmari had evolved from an aquatic species, and their natural grace in 3-dimensional movement made them excellent starship crews. "Your Majesty," reported Commander Vashkol, his primary tactical officer. "Long-range sensors confirm no approaching vessels. The human will arrive alone, as expected." Zephron nodded, his 4 eyes never leaving the display. Each pair could focus independently, giving him a tactical advantage that most species lacked. "And our guests?" "Secure in the observation deck as ordered. They appear to be adapting well to shipboard life." The 4 human children had been aboard for 6 hours now, and Zephron had to admit they were more resilient than expected. Most species would be cowering in terror by now, but these young humans seemed almost curious about their situation. It had taken 3 years to track down Marcus Chen's family. The former ghost of Kepler Station had hidden himself well, living under his real name in plain sight on an insignificant backwater world. Zephron's intelligence network had finally located them through school records and medical files, the kind of mundane paper trail that a trained assassin might overlook. The abduction itself had been elegantly simple. Teleportation technology made it possible to snatch the children from their schools without leaving any trace. No witnesses, no evidence, just 4 human youngsters suddenly gone. Now Marcus Chen would come for them, walking straight into the trap Zephron had spent 12 years planning. "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Thekmar. "Incoming transmission from the observation deck. The children are asking to speak with someone in charge." Zephron's mandibles clicked in amusement. Human courage was legendary, but this bordered on the absurd. "Put them through." The main display shifted to show the observation deck, a spacious chamber with transparent aluminum walls that provided a stunning view of the star field outside. The 4 human children stood together near the center of the room, the oldest one, a female with auburn hair, apparently serving as their spokesperson. "Hello," the girl said with remarkable composure for someone her age. "I'm Sarah Chen. These are my brothers and sister. We'd like to know why you've brought us here and when we can go home." Zephron studied her carefully. She showed no signs of fear, only determination and a protective stance around her younger siblings. Impressive. "I am King Zephron of the Drakmari Empire. You are here because your father has wronged me greatly, and he must pay for his crimes." The boy called Tommy stepped forward, his young face twisted with anger. "Our dad hasn't done anything wrong. He works with computers and helps us with homework and makes really good pancakes. You've made a mistake." "Yeah," chimed in the youngest girl, Emma. "Daddy's the best daddy in the whole world. He reads us stories and fixes everything when it's broken." The smallest child, Jake, said nothing, but moved closer to his siblings, his dark eyes wide but unafraid. Zephron felt a flicker of something unexpected, almost like respect for these young humans. They defended their father with absolute loyalty, despite being helpless prisoners aboard an alien warship. But their ignorance of Marcus Chen's true nature only made his revenge sweeter. "Your father," Zephron said slowly, "is a killer. He has murdered thousands, destroyed entire civilizations, brought down governments with his own hands. You know him as a gentle parent, but the galaxy knows him as the most dangerous human alive." Sarah's expression didn't waver. "You're lying. Our father isn't a killer. He helps people." "Perhaps," Zephron conceded, "but before he became your father, he was something else entirely. Soon he will come for you, and when he does, he will die. This is justice." The transmission ended, but Zephron continued watching the children through the surveillance feeds. They huddled together, the older ones clearly trying to process what he'd told them while comforting the younger ones. Their loyalty to their father was absolute, despite learning he might be something other than what they'd believed. Remarkable. No wonder humans were so feared across the galaxy. They bred courage into their offspring from birth. "Your Majesty," Commander Vash Cole reported, "hyperspace distortion detected at the edge of sensor range. Single vessel approaching on an intercept course." "Right on schedule," Zephron murmured. "Signal the fleet. All vessels to high alert. Prepare the welcome we discussed." Hidden in the asteroid field surrounding their position, 12 Drakmari warships powered up their weapon systems. Marcus Chen might be legendary, but no single human could face an entire battle fleet and survive. The approaching vessel was small, barely registering on their sensors. It appeared to be a modified fighter bomber, certainly fast but hardly threatening to a ship the size of the Eternal Dominion. "Incoming transmission from the human vessel," reported Thekmar. "Put it through." The face that appeared on the screen was older than Zephron remembered, marked by years and the subtle lines that came with raising children. But the eyes were exactly the same, cold, calculating, absolutely without fear. "Zephron," Marcus Chen said simply. "I'm here. Release my children." "Marcus Chen, the ghost of Kepler Station. You look domesticated." Zephron smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Your children are safe for now. They are quite charming, actually. The youngest one asked if I knew any alien fairy tales. Marcus's expression didn't change. Let them go. Your fight is with me. Indeed it is. Do you remember my brothers, Marcus? Zakthul and Morthul? You killed them both during your assault on our mining operations in the Crystalline Nebula. I was forced to watch as you systematically butchered my family. Your brothers were murdering colonists and enslaving children, Marcus replied flatly. They got exactly what they deserved. Zephron's control over his temper slipped slightly. They were heroes, patriots defending Drakmari interests against human expansion, and you were nothing but an assassin, a murderer in the night. And now, I'm a father, which makes me infinitely more dangerous than I ever was as a soldier. The confidence in Marcus's voice sent an unexpected chill down Zephron's spine, but he pushed the feeling aside. This human was outnumbered 12-1, alone in a tiny ship, facing the might of an entire battle fleet. Your arrogance remains unchanged, Zephron said. You will surrender immediately and submit to execution, or I will begin killing your children one by one, starting with the smallest. For the first time, Marcus's expression shifted. The cold calculation in his eyes became something far more dangerous, a promise of violence that made even Zephron's veteran crew take involuntary steps backward. If you harm them, Marcus said quietly, I will not simply kill you. I will dismantle your entire empire piece by piece. I will hunt down every member of your bloodline, every ship in your fleet, every world that calls you king. I will leave nothing but empty space where the Drakmari Empire used to exist. The transmission ended. Zephron stared at the blank screen for a moment, then shook off his unease. Human threats meant nothing when faced with superior firepower. All ships, prepare to fire on my command. Target his engines first. I want him alive for questioning. But even as he gave the order, Zephron couldn't shake the memory of those cold, deadly eyes. For just a moment he'd felt like prey being studied by a predator. Impossible. The human was trapped, outnumbered, and about to die. So why did Zephron suddenly feel like he was the one walking into a trap? On his display, Marcus Chen's ship continued its steady approach, a tiny speck against the vast star field. Too small to threaten a battle fleet, too slow to escape, too late to save his children. But something about the ship's trajectory bothered Zephron. It wasn't approaching directly, but following a curving path that would take it through the outer edge of the asteroid field where his hidden ships waited. Commander Vashkol, Zephron said slowly, scan that asteroid field again. Full spectrum analysis. The tactical officer's scaled hands moved across his control surface. Sir, I'm reading. This is impossible. What? The asteroids are moving. In formation. They're not asteroids at all. They're ships. Cloaked vessels, dozens of them. Zephron felt his blood freeze. Human ships? Unknown configuration, but, sir, they're powering weapons. Massive energy signatures across the entire field. The trap snapped shut. What Zephron had thought was empty space suddenly blazed with weapons fire as 40 cloaked vessels revealed themselves. Not human ships. These were something else entirely. Ancient designs, elegant and deadly, with technology that made Drakmari systems look primitive. Evasive maneuvers! Zephron roared. All ships, return fire! But the Drakmari fleet was caught completely off guard. The mysterious attackers had positioned themselves perfectly, catching the battle group in a crossfire that made defense impossible. One by one, Zephron's proud warships began to die. In the chaos, a new transmission reached the Eternal Dominion. King Zephron. Marcus Chen's voice was calm despite the battle raging around them. I'd like you to meet some friends of mine. The Celestial Guardians have been looking forward to this meeting. The Celestial Guardians. Zephron had heard whispers of them, an ancient peacekeeping force that had supposedly vanished millennia ago. They were legends, myths, stories used to frighten children. But their weapons were very real, and they were systematically destroying everything Zephron had built. You see, Marcus continued, when I retired from active service, I didn't just disappear. I became a consultant, and some of my clients have very long memories when it comes to species that prey on innocent children. 3 more Drakmari ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Surrender now, Marcus said, and I'll ask them to spare your crew. Continue fighting, and they'll reduce this entire fleet to scrap metal. Zephron looked around his bridge at the terrified faces of his officers. Half his fleet was already gone, and the rest were hopelessly outmatched. The humans had turned his perfect ambush into a slaughter, but he still had one advantage. You forget, Zephron snarled into the communication channel. I still have your children. Order your allies to stand down or I will space them all. The weapons fire stopped. That's better, Zephron said, feeling some of his confidence return. Now you will surrender, or your offspring will learn what vacuum feels like. Marcus Chen's laughter was soft and absolutely terrifying. You really don't understand, do you? Marcus said. You think my children are helpless prisoners. You think they're just ordinary human kids. They are children, Zephron protested. They can barely reach the door controls. Zephron, Marcus said gently, you abducted the children of the most dangerous human alive. Did you really think I'd raise them to be helpless? On the observation deck, Sarah Chen looked up at the surveillance camera and smiled. In her hand was a device she'd assembled from components hidden in her clothing, components that looked innocent enough to pass any scanner, but when combined became something far more dangerous. Hi, King Zephron, she said cheerfully. Daddy taught us that family always protects family. The device in her hand began to glow, absorbed in his task. Marcus ruffled Jake's dark hair affectionately. Easy there, buddy. Save some energy for school. The scene was perfectly ordinary, exactly what Marcus had fought to preserve. 15 years ago, he'd been known across 17 star systems as the Ghost of Kepler Station, the human who'd single-handedly ended the Zephyrian War by infiltrating their command ship and eliminating their entire leadership structure. But that was before he'd met Elena, before he'd learned that some battles were worth walking away from. Elena had died 3 years ago in a car accident, leaving Marcus to raise their 4 children alone. He'd hung up his weapons for good then, focusing entirely on being the father his kids deserved. The galaxy could handle its own problems now. His secure communicator, the one he'd kept for emergencies only, had been silent for years. Marcus liked it that way. All right, troops, he called out, checking his watch. Bus comes in 20 minutes. Sarah, help Emma with her backpack. Tommy, finish your breakfast before it gets cold. The morning routine continued smoothly. Marcus had become an expert at herding his small army through their daily preparations. Lunchboxes packed, homework double-checked, permission slips signed. It was a different kind of tactical operation than he was used to, but no less important. As the school bus rumbled away with his precious cargo aboard, Marcus allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This was what victory looked like. 4 happy, healthy kids who'd never had to see their father kill anyone. He spent the day working from his home office, running a small security consulting firm that dealt with perfectly mundane corporate clients. No death rays, no alien invasions, just password protocols and surveillance camera placement. It paid the bills and kept his skills sharp without anyone getting vaporized. The first sign that something was wrong came at 3:47 p.m. Marcus was reviewing quarterly reports when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Westfield Elementary School. Mr. Chen, this is Principal Morrison. I'm calling because Emma and Jake never showed up for afternoon classes after lunch. The teacher noticed they were missing during roll call. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. What do you mean they never showed up? They were on the bus this morning. Yes, they attended their morning classes normally, but after lunch recess, they simply weren't there. We've searched the entire school grounds. We've already contacted the police and... Marcus was already grabbing his keys. I'll be right there. The drive to the school took 8 minutes. It should have taken 15, but Marcus had forgotten how to drive like a civilian. He burst through the main office doors to find Principal Morrison, 2 police officers, and a crowd of concerned staff members. "Any word from the high school about Sarah and Tommy?" Marcus demanded. Principal Morrison's face went pale. We assumed they were still in their classes. Let me call right now." The phone call confirmed Marcus's worst fears. Sarah and Tommy had also vanished during their lunch period. 4 children, 2 different schools, same time frame. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. Detective Rodriguez, a tired-looking man in his 50s, approached Marcus with a notepad. "Mr. Chen, I need to ask some questions. Is there anyone who might want to harm your family? Any recent threats? Custody disputes?" Marcus almost laughed. If only the detective knew how long that list of potential enemies was. But those were enemies from another life, from conflicts that had supposedly ended years ago. "No," Marcus lied smoothly. "Nothing like that." But even as he spoke to the detective, Marcus's mind was racing through possibilities. The hegemony forces he'd crippled on Zerion Prime, the cult of the Eternal Void whose leadership he'd systematically eliminated, the crime families from the Outer Rim territories who'd placed bounties on his head that had never been officially lifted. His secure communicator buzzed. Marcus excused himself and stepped into an empty hallway. The message was audio only, transmitted through channels that definitely didn't exist according to any government. "Hello, Marcus Chen. Or should I say, the legendary ghost of Kepler Station." The voice was unfamiliar, speaking heavily accented Galactic Standard. Marcus felt years of carefully suppressed instincts surge back to life. "I have your children, human. All 4 of them, safe and unharmed for now. You will receive coordinates in exactly 1 hour. Come alone, unarmed, and perhaps they will remain that way." The transmission ended. Marcus stared at the device for a long moment, then carefully put it away. When he returned to the main office, he was once again the worried suburban father, not the most dangerous human alive. "Detective, I'm going home to wait by the phone in case there's a ransom call. Please keep me updated on any developments." Rodriguez nodded sympathetically. "Of course. We'll have patrol cars watching your house, and we're issuing alerts for all 4 children." Marcus drove home in controlled fury. Someone had made a terrible mistake. They'd taken his children thinking they were grabbing a helpless civilian family. They had no idea they'd just declared war on someone who had toppled governments and ended species-wide conflicts. But first, he needed information. Marcus's house looked ordinary from the outside, but the basement told a different story. Behind a false wall that could fool any standard scanner lay his real office. The walls were lined with enough weapons to outfit a small army, surveillance equipment that could hack most planetary networks, and detailed files on every major player in galactic politics. His old combat suit hung in a sealed container, its adaptive camouflage systems and built-in weapon systems pristine despite years of storage. Marcus ran his fingers along the familiar material, remembering missions where this armor had been all that stood between him and death. The secure terminal hummed to life, its quantum encryption protocols engaging automatically. Within minutes, Marcus was connected to networks that officially didn't exist, tapping into information streams that most governments would kill to access. He started with recent galactic news. The hegemony had fallen 3 years ago, replaced by a loose confederation of former client species. The Vorthak supremacy was still fighting a civil war in the Andromeda spiral. Nothing that should have drawn attention back to him. Then he found it. A small item buried in the diplomatic feeds. King Zephron VII of the Drakmari Empire announces upcoming celebration of the Third Solar Convergence, marking the establishment of the new galactic order. Marcus felt his blood run cold. The Drakmari Empire was new, formed from the ashes of a dozen smaller kingdoms in the past 5 years. But the name Zephron was familiar. Very familiar. He pulled up the file, and there it was. Prince Zephron Vakthul, third in line for the throne of the Drakmari Mining Collective. Marcus had killed his 2 older brothers during the liberation of the crystalline nebula colonies, effectively making the prince heir to his father's kingdom. That had been 12 years ago. Apparently, Zephron had been busy. The coordinates arrived exactly 1 hour later, along with another message. Your children are guests aboard my personal flagship. They are quite fascinated by our technology, though they ask for you constantly. How touching. You have 24 hours to reach the rendezvous point. Any attempt to bring backup will result in their immediate execution. Marcus studied the coordinates. Deep space. 3 light-years from the nearest inhabited system. Far enough from any shipping lanes that no one would witness whatever Zephron had planned. The new king clearly intended this as a trap, expecting Marcus to come charging in blindly to save his children. Zephron had probably spent years planning this revenge, savoring the moment when he could make the legendary Ghost of Kepler station pay for destroying his family. What Zephron didn't understand was that Marcus had spent the last 15 years learning to think like a father instead of a soldier. And a father's love made him infinitely more dangerous than any military training ever could. Marcus began pulling gear from his storage lockers. The combat suit went on first, its neural interfaces syncing with his nervous system like he'd never taken it off. Weapons came next. Plasma rifle, molecular blade, enough explosives to level a city block. But those were just tools. His real weapons were 15 years of tactical experience and a fury that burned cold as deep space. His personal ship was hidden in a storage facility 30 miles outside town, registered under an identity that had officially died on Kepler Station. The Ghost's Vengeance was a heavily modified fighter bomber, designed for stealth operations and built to handle impossible odds. Marcus had hoped never to fly her again. As he powered up her systems and plotted a course for the coordinates, Marcus allowed himself one moment to think about his children. Sarah with her stubborn independence, Tommy with his endless curiosity, Emma with her infectious laugh, Jake with his quiet intelligence. They were counting on him, just like countless innocents had counted on him during the war. But this time it was personal. Marcus engaged the hyperdrive and disappeared into the darkness between stars. The Ghost of Kepler Station was coming out of retirement, and King Zephron had no idea what he'd unleashed. 3 light-years away, aboard the Drakmari flagship Eternal Dominion, 4 human children sat in a luxurious prison, unaware that their father was about to remind the galaxy why humans were the most feared species in known space. The hunt was beginning.